Hello and welcome to this EA Sports FC special episode focused on finding the perfect players to fill out your ultimate team at the start. We're looking at cheap beasts, maybe some more expensive players too. And I have two guests with me who've been scouring the database for players to bring to the table for this episode. First of all, we have JoshXLs. Hello, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's that time of the year we're all building our teams that we think we're going to have, and then you pack that untradeable player from your first untradeable pack, and it all changes again. So yeah, very, very excited to get into this.
And we have another guest, so I'm hoping is going to carry this a bit, because with the database launch and foot.gg stuff going on, I've been very busy. I've got a few to bring to the table, but I know 𝗏𝘬bear has plenty. Welcome back to the pod.
Thank you for having me. I think I should probably just make foot.gg my homepage at this point, because it's like every time I open my browser, it's just like new tab, finding new players, new player searches, all these things. So yeah, excited to be talking about some of these players, lots of new ones, obviously, with the addition of the women.
Yeah, very good point. We'll come back to that in just a second, because I've realized I forgot to mention that this is going on YouTube, which is unsurprising. Main feed episodes normally on YouTube, but the difference is here we're going to have some visuals of the players on the screen thanks to Josh's editing skills, and this is actually something we're considering doing moving forward for particularly content episodes. So if you think it works well, then do drop a like, leave a comment. In fact, you could even subscribe, because we're very close to that 1,000 subscriber mark. But yeah, it'd be good to have your feedback. It will still make sense in audio form, and the podcast itself is not going anywhere, and that's important to note. And actually, a reminder, there is another episode this week on the supporter feed. There's that free trial, so you can listen to it even if you're not currently a supporter for free. And there's the 36,000 FIFA point giveaway on the Patreon too. Just search Support Foot Weekly. Going well so far, stuck in two plugs, but we can move into what we're talking about first, which is, as you mentioned, women in Ultimate Team and the impact on the database, really. Because remember, most of them are gold, actually, which means that there are a lot more usable gold players in Ultimate Team.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say like a 50% increase. Obviously, it's not doubling, but 50% of what it was, just because, how many players from the existing men's database would you actually use, in a given cycle, other than maybe some silvers? Probably not that many. A lot of bronzes and silvers and things like that are just kind of fodder. So, having all these women's cards, lots of them with high pace, at least for the attackers, lots with skill moves and weak foot. Some really interesting stats too. You'll have a player who's maybe 5'7", 5'8", with high agility and really high strength. So I think some really interesting players that'll really, put a twist on things. I think prices could be really hard to predict, because there's so many more options now. So definitely an interesting, thing that's being changed this cycle.
Yeah, and actually, do you think, Josh, that they might have to suppress the pack weight of all players to compensate for that to some extent? Just because otherwise it's just going to, I guess, devalue the market quite a lot. I mean, we've already seen golds drop quite low from relatively early on in the cycle, but you'd imagine that if there's the same volume of players, of usable gold players out there that there was last year, plus the women's players coming in, the prices could be actually really quite cheap of a lot of players that people want to use early on.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, and one of the kind of complaints that wasn't necessarily based in questionable motives around the women being introduced to the game is the dilution of potential pack weight, in terms of you're introducing so many more players. I think I was looking earlier, there's almost 500 82 or higher rated base gold players in EAFC 24. I think there was only about 350 last year. And so it is a massive, massive increase. I don't know if they'll suppress the pack weight, because I think, there'll be just as many fodder, 81, 82, 83 rated women's players as there are usable. And so, as we see with somebody like Mendy year in, year out, even though he's only 83 rated, it's very difficult to pack him. We won't have that with Dembele this year, because he's had a nice little +3. But it's probably going to be more that the players individually are weighted rather than the ratings themselves. But I do think we've been moving more and more away from base gold players being usable past about October, really. The push is so heavy towards promo cards. And now with evolutions as well, where you can essentially choose the player you want to get a promo card, really, and put them into the evolutions to bring them up. I I could see the gold market being very low very quickly again this year, and I think the dilution, or the increase in the number of usable players is going to contribute to that just as much.
And does that mean we're potentially early on looking at 82, 83, maybe even 84 rated players being more affordable than they have been in the past? So when we're talking about early squads, cheaper players, actually some of these 82s, 83s, 84s might actually be considered cheaper, end up being cheaper than in the past.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's even further than that. We get more packs like at the beginning of the game now than we ever have done before. In the past, it used to be like a real grind. You used to be playing with bronzes and silvers to begin with, but within about 3 hours of being on the game, you can have like 1 million coins worth of packs by completing the objectives, scoring your golds, doing the bronze teams, doing the silver team. It can just accelerate your account so quickly that I really think those 82, 83, 84 rated players that aren't 5-star skill moves or have a playstyle plus or have that 90 pace or whatever it is, I do think they will be very cheap very quickly.
I was having flashbacks there. You said 3 hours and 1 million coins, and I was like, here we go again. Shout out to the supporter episode last week. But yeah, I agree with you. And I also think one thing we should talk about now is what is the thing to look for, not only in players generally, but when you're building a squad early on. Because yes, you'll have untradables, which influence what you do, but I think it's always important to think about where you're spending coins or where you want to strengthen. And Hugh, we could come to you for that. What do you tend to look for particular players at this point?
Yeah, I would say if I'm really spending a decent amount of coins, I want someone that's going to last for a while. It's not, especially with how quickly prices change. I think a lot of the kind of cheap beasts might start a little high and then really quickly fall down as people start to improve their teams. So I'm not trying to spend 5K on a center mid who's like 80 rated or something like that. I'd rather just keep someone who's maybe a little bit worse but untradeable or a lot cheaper. And then when I'm ready to, spend the coins and make an upgrade, I'm getting someone who's like a really good upgrade and it's going to last for a while. So just, also being willing to embrace that, at the start, you're not going to have the best players, but it's probably the only time of the cycle where you'll be able to use a lot of these players. So just kind of trying to enjoy it while we can.
Yeah, exactly. And then in terms of positions on the field, you would tend to spend coins on, Josh? Is it quite similar to real life, actually, in a way?
For me, I like to go as untradable as possible early because it saves you from the potential drops that you can get and it maximizes the coins that you can have in terms of looking for investments, for trading, all that kind of stuff. So really, my coins will only be spent on a position where I don't have anybody or where I need chemistry more than necessarily going, well, I'm going to buy the best striker, because I might pack a striker that I'm not looking at currently and I go, oh, they look quite good, let me build around them. Or I might pack a bunch of Liga players and then, okay, well, let me build around that. And I think going in with like a set plan, it ignores the fact that you're going to have packs to open. You might pack something untradeable from those starter SBCs that you want to get into your team and might take the place of that player you've been eyeing up. So yeah, for me, starter-wise, I tend to only spend coins when there's a clear gap in my squad.
So to use an example, let's say you only have centre-backs below, 60 pace, even though they might be decent. Would you actually go into, say, the first champs with those untradeable centre-backs, or would you then be looking to upgrade your centre-backs, or kind of how tight are you going to be about it?
Yeah, no, I think part of it is you have to play the game as well. We don't know what the game is going to be like, but pace is always important early days in the game. It was less so last year because of how powerful 𝘮𝘬 was when the game started. It may be that if you've got a very low pace defender, they're going to be the kind of extreme 𝘮𝘬 that we now have, where they're not going to be super fast, but it may be that you can get away with it. It may be that defensive stats are way more important this year than they have been in the past. But yeah, probably if I had only centre-backs less than 60 pace, might be looking to bring somebody in for at least one of them. But I would say I think people get drawn way too much to pace when they're building their starter teams, and actually, really at the beginning of the game, technical players can really show up the people that are all pace and have no real technique or can't defend. I've seen a lot of people talking about there's a few La Liga centre-backs that are 76, 77 rated, but because they've got 80 plus pace, everyone's like, oh, they look great. It's like they've got 75 defending with like 72 stand tackle. You're going to just walk past them with anybody with any kind of like ability on the ball. So yeah, I would pick up a centre-back if I've only got very slow centre-backs. That I would consider that a gap. But I mean more like, if I've got a passable left-back, I'm not going to go and try and improve that left-back until after the first weekend league, when you get those first sets of rewards coming in, you get a bit of coins, you understand where the market's going, and you've had the chance to do some SBCs and objectives.
Yeah, and I would say don't be afraid to bring in those like typically fodder higher rated players that aren't too much more than their discard value, because actually they might be, say, slow and that's why they're discard value, but can be really, really useful at this point and potentially will rise when they are being used in SBCs. So while people might not want to spend money, actually spending coins on someone you can discard for the same price pretty much as you've paid isn't really spending in a way, right? You still have those coins. So I think that's an important point to make too. And actually also, just before we get into it, do you two have particular formations you tend to prefer at the start? Or does that depend on what players you get? I mean, I know you're a big 4-3-3 exponent, but do you tend to go for something a bit more traditional at the start?
Yeah, I like 4-3-3. I think it's a good balance. I would probably avoid certain ones like 3 at the back that can be a bit more attacking, just because you probably don't have great center backs for that at the start. The quick center backs can be quite expensive, and if you have your wing backs flying forward, then it can be pretty exposed. So something to look out for. But I just like trying different ones. Get a sense of what's working. I feel like every year there's a meta, so not necessarily even finding what the meta is, but finding what works against the meta as well is definitely important.
Yeah, that's true. And Josh, what about you?
I always go 4-4-2 really to begin with. It's just the one that I feel like works the most consistently, always gives you good balance, allows you to play with the custom tactics more than anything. And I like having those 2 strikers. Usually by the time we get to the second weekend league, there's a kind of meta forming, or there's a way that you can play. In the past, it's also been like, what can I fit my players into where they're going to get good chemistry? But with the auto position changes this year, I think it's going to be a little more open for people to just pick their formation, because most of the players will, fit in eventually. You'll be able to find some way to fit them in.
Yeah, I've normally gone for 4-2-3-1 variants, just always been someone who feels like they play a bit better with someone playing behind the striker, and it allows you to get someone in like the first player. Actually, do you know what? I'll mention them now since we're moving on to it. I really, really like the look of 𝗵𝗫. He's only got 78 pace, right? But he has the Trickster Playstyle Plus, which is great. So he can do these unique flick animations, dribbles, and various stuff that is going to be really fun to use, but also he's got the finesse shot playstyle. He's got the technical playstyle as well, which allows him to dribble faster, essentially, in controlled sprint, which is the one where you press R1 and then you can run with a bit more control, but still at speed. He's also got incisive pass. This is his regular playstyles and 𝗵𝗫. So I think he's got a good selection. He's obviously only 2-star weak foot, but to be honest, I've always been someone who doesn't mind lower weak foot too much. I kind of by default try to use a player's strong foot quite a lot anyway, so it doesn't bother me too much. Still got 91 agility, 91 ball control, 90 dribbling, and 89 composure, as well as 87 short passing, 92 curve, 88 free kick accuracy, 89 vision, and he's got a little bit of aggression and strength and height as well, which is quite nice. So I think he'll be good. He's at Benfica now, which should make him pretty cheap, even though he's an 83 rated. His default position is actually centre forward, so he can also play striker, which I think does make him more viable as a slow player, because you can still get in your pacey wingers in the wide positions. So he's someone I'm definitely keen to get in early, and also actually because he links to a lot of other very good Benfica players. I'll park that for now and maybe come back to it, because I'm keen to hear who Hugh and Josh have. So Hugh, why don't you start us off? What particular player are you eyeing up?
It's almost the same player when you look at the stats. It's technically 2 different players, but just depending on the league you're building from. So I did a search on foot.gg for players with 85 or more pace, 85 or more agility, 85 or more balance, and 85 or more strength. And there's only 2 players in the game that fit that criteria. One is, I think it's 𝘵𝘃𝗲𝗰𝘀𝘀 from Man United. She's Brazilian, and one is 𝘵𝘂𝗻𝘂𝗀𝘀 from Levante in the women's Spanish league. They're both really similar stats, and they're not even just like 85 plus. They're closer to like 88, 90 plus in these stats, and they're the only two in the game. So like no 𝘵𝘂𝗀𝘀, Cristiano, Haaland, any of these players, and it's like it's crazy. These are an 81 and 83 rated strikers, and they're probably not going to be very expensive, and they have such unique stats. They look incredible.
Yeah, they both have ridiculous physicality, and they're not that tall, but Ramirez is kind of tallish, right?
Yeah, 5'10", high medium, but no real holes in her stats either. Like they're all solid stats. Nothing you would really, look down on. 𝘃𝑚 has medium work rates, which isn't the best, but just like really good stats as well, and only 81 rated. So I mean, obviously it's not going to be perfect. 82 finishing, 76 shot power could be better, but with a chem style, you definitely get that up.
Yeah, Ramirez, interestingly, has quite a few traits as well, right? Not plus, as many of these players that we'll be looking at don't have pluses, because there's only, 150 or so players who have pluses. But she has finesse shot, first touch, technical, aerial, and relentless, and also quick step, which, as we talked about before, very useful play style to have. But the other thing I was going to ask is, both these players have 3-star weak foot. Are you kind of preferring the 4-star skills at the start to the weak foot, Hugh?
It's hard to say. I think there's a few new 4-star skill moves, so that'd probably be nice to be able to do. I think it can be, hard with some of these starter players. You kind of have to have a weakness somewhere, or else they'd just be way more expensive or higher rated. So, you kind of have to pick and choose your battles. But also just looking at, the links that they have, they're in good leagues. Like the 𝘵𝘂𝗻𝘂𝗀𝘀 Ramirez is in the same league as that 𝘵cie𝗰𝗀𝘀𝗁, which I know lots of people on Twitter have been talking about. Another one from the Spanish league. So 5-star weak foot on her, also 83 rated. So I think there's just like, it opens up a lot of possibilities for, who you can play them with as well, to kind of minimize their weaknesses.
Yeah, I was actually looking at, I think it's Paula Fernandez, who plays for Levante as well. And while maybe she doesn't have the best stats, if you're looking for someone to just get chemistry on her, I think she'd be fine, because she has 85 short passing, 80 long passing, 82 strength, which is good, 81 standing tackle, 84 interceptions, only 3-star, high attacking, medium defensive, which isn't ideal, but should be useful. One thing I did want to mention is actually the database that EA released, which all the databases like Foot.gg used, didn't have alt positions. So while some positions are default, like striker to centre forward, for example, so we know that's going to exist for those players, or right wing to right mid, right wing back to right back, others we don't know about yet. And that's particularly the case for midfielders, where they'll have centre mid but no default position, but they may well have CDM, CAM, etc. So it's important to note. Right, let's move on to yourself, Josh. Anyone you wanted to bring up here?
Yeah, so I've gone less kind of stats based. Obviously, stats are still important, but more playstyle based, especially people that don't have playstyle plus, but have some of the playstyles I think are going to be super overpowered. So the first one's going to be a Premier League centre back that I think is being lost a little bit in the kind of, there's 3 City centre-backs, Akanji Ake and Gvardiol, that all look really good. Obviously, Saliba looks amazing. Varane looks incredible. Van Dijk will be super expensive. But Jurrien Timber has been injured, so he's not going to be playing. So there's going to be a little bit of like, people won't be thinking about him. He's got 78 pace, 80 defending, and 80 physical. But the stat that he has, the play styles that he has, is jockey and intercept. Jockey specifically, I think, is going to be super, super important. I'll just read out what it does. It increases the max speed of sprint jockey and improved transition speed from jockey to sprint. So when you're defending one-on-one, especially if you're tracking that striker, if you've got a striker running at you, you're going to be able to win the ball back off the player a lot more consistently and be able to keep up with them whilst being in that kind of jockey motion, which allows you to make tackles more effectively. So for me, I think it's going to be super important. Somebody like Koundé, I think, is going to be very, very expensive from Barcelona, because he's got that as a playstyle plus, and he's got the 84 pace. Another defender that has it, but isn't in the Premier League, is Nico Schlotterbeck from Bundesliga. Now, he might be a bit more expensive. He's 83 rated. He's got 78 pace, 85 defending, and 82 physical. But he's got 7 playstyles, which I think is the most I've seen on a player. I don't think I've seen anybody with more than 7 play styles. and he just looks crazy. I used his ones to watch at the beginning of FIFA 23 and really, really enjoyed it. He's got a deserved upgrade. He was superb for Dortmund last year, and he's got 78 pace, 85 defending, 82 physicals. But he has got aerial, intercept, block, slide tackle, jockey, all defensive play styles, and then he's got the long ball and power header traits, goodness me, going forward. And he's left-footed, so you've got that left-footed centre-back on the left-hand side. I think he's going to be a brilliant centre-back. He's probably going to be a bit expensive, but every year it seems like there's an 83 rated centre-back that is OP for the first 2 months. It was Kimpembe 2 years ago. Araujo last year was amazing from Barcelona. There's a sneaking suspicion that Schlotterbeck may be the OP 83 rated centre-back this year.
Yeah, he looks really good. If you want an even lower rated centre-back with jockey, his name's 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘀𝘁. Unfortunately not the most linkable because his country is Equatorial Guinea and he plays for Las Palmas, but he is 6'2". He has like solid enough defensive stats, but also 84 strength, 77 aggression. But he's lengthy by default, has 86 sprint speed and 79 acceleration.
Yeah, and he actually has a teammate, 𝘵𝘃𝗲𝗃, who's 76 rated center back with 84 pace, 5-star weak foot, only 5'11", controlled explosives. Not really your kind of archetypal center back, but probably pretty good in a 3, with that pace, solid strength. I want to say that he should have right back as an alternate position from what I remember last year. Don't quote me on that if it changes, but based on his height and his pace, it kind of would make sense. So yeah, maybe someone you can also start at right back because there's not a ton of pacey right backs that are very cheap either. So a decent option if you want to stay back right back too.
Yeah, and actually has 5-star weak foot as well, which is nice. Yeah, nice one. Maybe a bit of a Las Palmas hybrid brewing. I mean, there's certainly a lot of Spanish options, aren't there, with the women's players as well. But I wonder if there are some, higher rated players, particularly in La Liga. I find that, we've had Busquets in the past. There's obviously Cruz, who are both very slow, but have actually been kind of nice to have in the early stages because, as I said before, they don't decrease necessarily in value if they're fodder price, and you could make profit if an SBC comes. So are there any kind of like higher rated players that fall into the category of potentially being players you aren't going to lose coins on?
It's an interesting one. I mean, like high rated fodder did have a nice rise last year once we got the first few SBCs in. The thing with when people are building women's teams is they get to the centre backs and then are worried about the height, and we're just going to have to wait and see. I think it's the height and the physicality. Even though their physical stats on the card might be good, the weight of a player is massively important when you have those collisions in game. So it's going to be something we're just going to have to see how it plays. But I look at like 𝗵𝗍𝗄𝐿, who is an 80, I think she's joint highest rated centre back in the game, and looks amazing. Has like 81 passing on a centre back, 90 defending. Isn't the like best physically, but is good enough and has really good dribbling. As I say, amazing passing and even like really decent shooting. Her stats look to me like she might be able to play in midfield. And if you can play her in midfield, I think she'll be undervalued because her card comes out as a centre back. But I really, really like the look of 𝗵𝗍𝗄𝐿.
Yeah, I guess you could start in a back 3, right, and switch through custom tactics to move her into midfield. So yeah, I think it's a good shout. A lot of them, obviously, as you'd imagine, of the women's defensive players are really good on the ball, and so that's potentially something to look for. Any other players from you, Hugh, you wanted to mention here?
On the theme of Spanish, I gotta say 𝗵𝗪𝘳 looks amazing. 5-star, left-footed, amazing dribbling. 92 dribbling, 90 shooting, 91 passing, solid physicals, decent pace as well. So she really looks great. There's a few Barcelona midfielders, Bonmatí, Guijarro. So lots of options there. You could probably make a really great Barcelona women's team and then just plug in Araujo and Koundé and Ter Stegen at the back and you're good to go.
Yeah, one point to make actually on this is the way chemistry works with clubs. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Josh, is that once you have 4 players from the same club, they do get full chem if they're all from the same league, because you have that league chemistry point coming in and you have 2 club chemistry points. But potentially with women's players, if you drop them into the mix, as long as you have an extra bit of nation chemistry, you can still use 4 players to get up to full chem on those players.
Yeah, if you've got the extra nation chemistry, that would be correct, because you'll have the 2 segments from the club, and then you just need that extra segment either from the league if you add an extra player in, or from the nation, on whether that nation's a woman's player and a man's player linking, or the 2 women and the 2 men's player linking. You can get it that way.
Yeah, so it does make it quite good for these clubs that do cross between women's and men's, but obviously that isn't the case for a lot of leagues as well. Have you found any hue in the NWSL? Because I know on the supporter episode, Josh was talking about how actually NWSL could be undervalued because it's like slightly awkward to link to other leagues, but at least it is actually quite easy to link within its own league because all the players generally are US nationality.
Yeah, there's definitely a number of options. Obviously, going forward, plenty of options. Look at 𝘵𝘀𝘀, 5-star, 5-star, technical dribbler, playstyle plus, and 5'1". I'm sure she's just like incredible on the ball. But even then, there's some other options. Like a bit of a cheaper one would be Crystal Dunn. She's listed as a cam, but I'm pretty sure she would have like left back and maybe like CDM as alternate positions because she's very versatile. Plays left back for the national team, has played on the wing, has played in attacking midfield, but 87 pace, 85 dribbling, but then both 77 shooting and 77 defending while having solid passing and physicality. Just a really solid all-around midfielder who you could probably play in a number of positions. And also one where, 77 defending, but she has 81 defensive awareness and 79 interceptions. It's really just the heading that brings it down. So I think she'd be a really solid kind of Conte type CDM at 5'1".
Yeah, that's true. Anyone yourself, Josh, you've picked out?
I mean, it's difficult to look past 𝘵𝘀𝘃 Rodman. She's not only is it an amazing name, and you can have 3 American women's players from the NWSL, call it the Holy Trinity. You can do all those kind of jokes. But an 84 rated right winger with 94 pace and 83 physicality, I think that's the big thing that draws people to her. She's also got 7 playstyles, including a playstyle plus, which is quick step. Got finesse shot, flare trait, rapid, trickster, trivella, and relentless. I think relentless could be a playstyle that might get overlooked initially, but could be big, especially as you get into champs and you're playing more 90-minute matches and even into extra time. I think it could be quite a big playstyle to have. Just looks outrageous, with a dead eye. I mean, it's a very, very good card. If you can get those links together, I think 𝘵𝘀𝘃 Rodman's going to be a big, big player.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, one thing I would note about the NWSL is that they do have some goalkeepers who are around 6 foot, which could be quite useful actually for getting some of their teammates on full chem really easily. Although, I don't know, that 6 foot tends to be a bit short for me for a keeper. I prefer them to be 6'2" or above generally, but we'd have to see how they play because potentially there is the option to do that. And that could be, as I said, an easy way to get chemistry on a player. Are there any other players from NWSL that you wanted to mention before we move on here?
In terms of particular players, there are a few options. I think one that I found interesting was, and I'm honestly not totally sure how to say this name, is 𝘬𝘠𝘠. I'm going to go with that. Interesting set of stats for an 81 rated CM. High low work rates, but does have 82 interceptions and 78 standing tackle. 94 stamina is really nice. Only 3-star, but decent pace and dribbling. Only 5'1", but just one I think like if we're talking about like true starter players, not ones where it's like, oh, here's my starter team and it's like Rashford and Van Dijk or something like that. So a true starter player seems like someone who could do pretty well as like an attacking, like get forward center mid, something like that.
Nice. We should probably take a break. I don't know whether anyone wants to sneak in a NWSL player before we move on.
Just purely for the picture on her card alone, Midge Purse, right winger, 81 rated, with the outrageous side eye. Someone's just said something horrific off camera, and her on a right wing looking at a striker is going to be hilarious.
Wow, yeah, you don't get that too often actually. The very professional pictures actually throughout the NWSL, so that's a nice touch. Actually, good card as well. Not bad. Like if you want pure
usable,
pace,
very usable.
Yeah. Okay, we'll take a break on that, and we'll be back, and I'll push my 𝘵𝘂𝘀 agenda. Hello, normally in this break I'd ask for your support. This time, I don't really need your support because there's a free trial function on Patreon, so you don't need to pay a thing, and you can get this week's supporter episode, the EA Sports FC 24 cheat sheet, completely free. All you need to do is sign up. Obviously, if you continue to support after that, that would be hugely appreciated, but you just don't need to. You can sign up and get that extra podcast, enter the 36,000 FIFA point giveaway, and as long as you're still supporting, at the end of the month, you'll be eligible. So do check that out. Greatly appreciate your support if you decide to do so. All you need to do is search Support FUT Weekly, follow the link in the description of this podcast, or type in bit.ly/morepod. That's bit.ly/morepod. A huge thank you if you do consider it, and let's jump into the rest of this podcast. Right, welcome back after the break. Yeah, time for me to push my Benfica agenda. Basically, there are a lot of really good starter players at Benfica, and I feel like it's worth a look. There's possibility, I guess, they're inflated in price because of how easy it is to get chemistry on 4 of them. If you put 4 of them in, you'll get full chem on them, as we were saying before. But if you look at Di Maria, as I said, very, very good. And I think it has that advantage of having been a top player, but now potentially cheaper because of the lower pace, but still having the technical quality. You've got Rafa, who people will probably be aware of, has 93 pace still, 86 dribbling, 4-star skills, actually default position centre forward again. And then we've got Koku, who's a player that you used to good effect. Was it last cycle, Hugh? 5-star weak foot. Looks really good.
Yeah, he was a good one. He had a player of the month, a team of the season. Always been good. I was kind of surprised he went from Feyenoord to Benfica. I won't call it a lateral move because Benfica pretty consistently in the Champions League. But I was thinking he might go top 5 leagues, but certainly makes an interesting one for Benfica.
Yeah, and he's got well-rounded stats and 85 aggression as well as good short passing stats and okay free kick stats too. Shame about the medium, as we know, nemesis of last cycle. But there's a fair few medium work rate midfielders around. If you don't mind low pace, you got Otamendi, who looks all right, but probably nothing to shout about. I really like David Neres as a starter player every year. He's got 5-star skills. He has always decent pace, 86 pace and 86 dribbling. You've also got Guedes, who people will know pretty well. Again, 86 pace and decent dribbling stats, but also great shooting, 81 on the card. And another favourite of yours, actually, right, Hugh, Bar, the right back, who has 91 pace and has 81 physical as well. Just actually a really, really good card to take a look at if you're wanting to evolve someone potentially and they allow you to go up to that kind of pace, because he's got 3-star skill moves and 5-star weak foot. He's high and he's 6 foot. So it is a really nice starting point for a better card. And as a starter player, he's also very good. You've then got Jessica Silva, who plays for the women's side, but you should be getting chemistry between the two. She has 5-star skills, 4-star weak foot, and good traits as well. She's got flair, technical, trickster, trivella, and quick step as well, and high medium work rates, which is nice. 87 dribbling and 85 composure, 87 agility is obviously going to be very good, but she's also decently fast, 82 pace on the card, and her passing is good enough. She'll definitely be cheap, I'd imagine, because her other stats aren't particularly amazing. But if you want to, chuck her in, get a bit of extra chem, maybe through throwing in one other player from that league and maybe the manager, or obviously if you have enough Portuguese and Benfica players, which you probably will, she'll get full chem. So yeah, I like the Portuguese league a lot this year. Not necessarily been my favourite in more recent years, but it has been good in the past. You've got St. Just as well, 93 pace centre-back for Sporting. He looks really good, and I think has quick step, which is nice. So that extra boost when he's in explosive sprint. And are there any other Portuguese league players we haven't mentioned? Maybe I think there's a left back, Sanusi, is it? Who's I think he's Nigerian, right? 93 pace or something like that. So yeah, a lot of different options, and because they're lowish overall, they're potentially evolution options as well, depending on the requirements.
They also, by and large, have a lot of play styles. I've noticed, like in the non-top 5 leagues, I mentioned this in the previous podcast we did, but a lot of those players in the lower leagues, I think because they're not expected to get as many promo cards, so there's not as many opportunities to give them more play styles, have been given lots of them. So it's definitely something to look out for. I do think those lower league squads could be slightly overpowered. If play styles are overpowered, I do think the Portuguese league, 𝘬𝘃𝗍𝘳, Turkish league, even Saudi league definitely could be overpowered to begin with.
Yeah, that's a good point. Are there any more off-league players you like the look of, actually?
Yeah, something I've been looking at really since they announced the heroes. There's there's going to be 3 of the new heroes in the Eredivisie. So, some of the options in the league aren't the best, but I think there's certainly some with potential that could be worth looking at. Bergwijn, definitely solid winger. There's 𝘧𝘧𝘀𝘀, who's listed as a right back, but I believe should have center back as an alternate position. So there's a few players in there, but really, you get those 3 heroes, Lippmann, Kanu, and Beasley, all look pretty solid. So that could be one of interest. Be interesting to see what they do, especially with evolutions. I think that it gives the lower leagues a bit more potential, because I think you kind of have these low-rated beasts, whereas in the main leagues, you kind of have your top players and then your not so good players generally.
Yeah, it is interesting as well with playstyles, because it does add that extra dimension to lower rated players. You see they have quite a few playstyles or ones that you think are going to be useful, and it just increases their usability. Yeah, anyone else from you, kind of very much left field, Josh, that you've found that people might not have?
Yeah, someone who I think will be quite expensive, mainly for SBC solutions to begin with, but is a really, really tidy little player, is 𝘵𝗍_𝗰𝘀𝘀, who's a right back at Galatasaray, French, has got 5 playstyles: relentless, technical, dribbler, anticipate, intercept, and jockey, the all-important jockey. 85 pace or 86 pace and 84 physicality. His technical stats aren't brilliant. He's very much a defensive right back, but I think most people set their wing backs to stay back while attacking, at least at the beginning of the game. I just think he could be a nice player for your team, especially if you're going with a mainly French team. And then Jota is the other one. Now, he moved from Celtic to the Saudi League, and it's not gone well for him. I actually don't think they registered him for the Asian Champions League. I'm pretty sure he's now saying he wants to leave. So, sometimes it's not all cake and watermelon. So, but he's got a really nice little card. He'll be super cheap at 78 rated. Again, might be expensive for SBC solutions, but 6 playstyles, including the Trickster playstyle, which I think is going to be a really important playstyle to have. There's a few extra animations, especially the flick ups with the Trickster playstyle are really, really nice, and I think will be quite difficult to defend against, at least at the beginning when people aren't expecting it. He's also got power shot, technical dribbler again. I think he could be a nice little cheap beast to pick up. And then I have one that's not from a minor league. It's from Liga F, from Real Madrid, and it's Caroline Weir, who's 4-star, high, a really well-rounded midfielder, really good play styles again. And I just think because the pace isn't massive, she isn't Spanish, she's Scottish, so it's going to be fairly difficult to link. I think she's going to get overlooked quite a bit and could end up being really, really cheap, but she's got some really nice stats. Her agility's a little low, but dribbling-wise, everything else is incredibly good for a starter player. Enough defending that she can perform well defensively. I think she could be one to look out for as kind of like a cheaper player that maybe isn't in people's teams when they first build them.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's nice to have a player who's that technical in the midfield as well, actually. I was going to mention, obviously, the right back you mentioned, 𝗲𝘱 being a Galatasaray player, but you've also got, I think it's Torreira is there, isn't he? And he looks pretty solid, like a well-rounded defensive midfielder with good work rates. And the other player to mention is Zaha, is at Galatasaray. And he's always really good at the start, but has always been fairly expensive because of the Premier League element, but actually could be more affordable. He's obviously strong, 5-star skills, 3-star weak foot, which isn't, I guess, terrible compared to 𝘵𝘵. And yeah, I think could be a nice little combo. Obviously, the nations there, apart from the French right back, not so great. But if you pop in a 4th player from Galatasaray again, you got your full chem. And if you happen to get an icon, then yeah, you're definitely sorted. Yeah, any ones from you, Hugh, that are very much under the radar at the moment you wanted to mention?
Yeah, I would also just add from the Super League, you have Fred, who, for a starter card looks pretty good. He has relentless playstyle plus, so I think that's pretty cool. High work rates, but 89 agility, 88 balance, not too bad pace, but decent defending, 94 stamina. So I think if you wanted to go for kind of a cheap, fun off league, couldn't go wrong there. Gedson Fernandez is definitely one that people look at, I think, talk about potentially for evolutions, depending on what we see, but a 78 rated center mid who's 73 plus in all the face card stats, high work rates.
Mhm.
you know, him and Fred together in the midfield with Zaha on the wings, it's pretty solid.
Yeah. Also, I don't know whether I should say this too loud, but you've also got Kent in the Super League, and he's still got 89 pace, 5-star weak foot, 4-star skills. So yeah, looks good.
Yeah, he does look good. There are definitely some options in that league. You know, thinking forward to what we could get for evolutions, guessing at the start of the game, probably focusing on lower rated players. So, you know, maybe you don't want to commit your limited evolutions to the Super League, but I think you could probably get some pretty good players from it that other people won't be looking at if you want more of a unique, fun squad. I wanted to point out when we're talking about kind of more off leagues, the Bundesliga 2 for silvers is crazy. You know, the star of the show, �ᬀ𝘀𝘀𝘁 𝘂𝘃𝗲𝘊, 95 pace, quick step playstyles plus. I think he's the lowest rated player in the game with a playstyles plus that isn't like long throw. He's got a brother, Christian Conte, who's a 93 pace winger. They've got a center back with 87 pace in that league. Like there's basically players with pace in almost every position except for center mid, which is like 75, not too bad. But if you're looking for a silver league, some players you might kind of come across early days when you're opening rewards packs, maybe you just hold on to some of those pacey Bundesliga 2 ones if you're looking forward to Silver Lounge.
Yeah. Do you kind of think, Josh, Evolutions adds a certain flavor, a certain dynamic to silvers generally? Because obviously they do have the potential to be upgraded and evolved. And if you've got a silver team and there's a player who's really good for you, you could potentially move them up to your main squad if there's enough room in Evolutions to do that, right?
Yeah, and I do hope that there is paths for you to do that because, you know, when if an evolution is locked to certain stats, it would be frustrating to, you know, upgrade a player through one evolution from a silver into a low-rated gold, but because they've had a, you know, pace boost, they then can't be entered into the next evolution. So I think managing that's going to be an interesting thing, and I do hope that there's kind of clearly delineated paths that you can put silver players into to really get them up to where you'd want them to be. I don't know if we'll see it in season 1, maybe as the seasons progress, but I just think Evolutions adds a different aspect to players across the board, to be honest, of all abilities. Low pace may not be an issue anymore because you might have an evolution that gives you a plus 10, plus 15 pace that suddenly makes that 60 pace midfielder eminently usable with 70, 75 pace. So I definitely think player prices and how the game changes and what's meta, I really hope that it is what we hope it's going to be. And we do get massive variations in teams as people, you know, level up the players they want to use rather than what the meta is.
Yeah. We should probably just run through a couple more players, but we want to have enough time to just chat about those pitch notes quickly. So, Hugh, any final players to chuck out there for people?
Yeah, there's a couple I can highlight. One would be 𝘂𝗃𝗀𝗃 might be the best gold left back in the game. You know, looking at her stats, she plays for PSG. I mean, obviously, PSG is always an easier club to link in general, so probably no issues there. And she's French, but you know, 4-star, 89 pace, 87 dribbling. Physicality is not great, 50 strength especially, but you know, as a going forward left back, after chem styles, she's pretty comparable to like an Alphonso Davies type player.
Yeah,
I have a feeling she's getting an inform this week as well.
Wow.
A goal and 2 assists. I can't imagine that's not going to be getting an inform.
How much of a problem do you think it is going to be having a 5'3" left back, Hugh? I guess you can't tell at this point, really.
Yeah, I guess it just depends how much, you know, explosive for defenders. I think this past season or this past cycle was really not something that you wanted, but this year maybe a bit more. I think it also depends if you're willing to let your fullbacks attack. If you want to stay back fullback, then I think she's definitely not going to be very good. But if you're someone who likes to have overlapping fullbacks or you play 3 at the back with wing backs, I think she could be really great.
Yeah. Also, you know, far post crosses are their thing because, you know, that could be a problem. But yeah, is that you done for now then? I mean, I'm sure there'll be players to mention here or there moving forward, but
I think there's only one more that I'll highlight, which is Ada Hegerberg. She's plays for Lyon. She's been around for a while, and I don't know if she'll necessarily be good, but I'm more curious that, you know, she has 74 agility and 48 balance, but she's only 5'9", so I'm curious with a lot of these women's players that how much does the agility and balance truly matter because they're so short? Like, is that going to make them feel clunky like we would expect with a men's player? Because usually a men's player with 74 agility and low balance is probably like a Harry Kane, like a tall striker. So I'm curious with these, relatively speaking, shorter strikers, maybe tall for a women's player, but is she still going to be good on the ball? Because she has 90 reactions, 90 ball control, 90 dribbling. So in theory, she could be kind of like a women's Harry Kane type player if, the dribbling's not too bad.
Yeah, her shooting is outstanding as well, right? And you're probably going to be putting Hunter on there. Not the fastest, but yeah, 4-star. 89 rated. So you got that whole fodder thing going, maybe. So yeah, an interesting one. Josh, let's come to you. Any final players to wrap us up here?
Yeah, I'm going to go for a rapid 4, all from La Liga. 82, 83, 84, and 85 rated. So we'll start off at the bottom with Molina, who's had a massive upgrade, Argentinian right back. Not to be confused with Montiel, who's moved to Nottingham Forest. But Molina's got 85 pace. He's got well-rounded stats outside of that. Decent passing, decent dribbling, good defending. Strength is a little low, but the stamina's high, which I think is probably one of the most important things on a fullback. He's got the block play style and whipped pass, which is for those crosses. So I think he could be a really good budget option early days. The 83 rated is a player I think got an upgrade despite getting relegated, which is 𝘭𝘪𝘐𝗍𝗪, who I believe he used to play for Newcastle, but I might have that wrong. The next player definitely played for Newcastle, but he's 83 rated, 81 pace, just really well-rounded midfielder, 82 passing, 83 dribbling, decent defending, only 3-star. Although his pace is high, I can see that dragging his price down a little bit, but he's got 7 play styles, including power shot, finesse shot, press proven, incisive pass, pinged pass, long ball pass. I just think he's got everything you could need in a really good starter midfielder. Obviously, that 3-star is the only thing that he's lacking. Another 3-star midfielder, and the Newcastle ex-player is Mikel Merino. 72 pace, again, is a bit low. At 84 rated, he's probably going to be a little bit more expensive, but those final 4 stats, 82 passing, 82 dribbling, 82 physical, and 83 defending, triple stat, 𝘃𝗃𝗀𝗀𝗀 delighted, is absolutely amazing. And again, just really, really well-rounded. 6'2", very tall midfielder, will be really good defensively for you. I think those two in the middle is a brilliant little duo. And then finally is Acuna, a player that I think will be overlooked. Again, he's only got 75 pace, which is quite low on the wing, but you can always whack on that shadow chemistry style. And for a player that's got the technical ability of somebody like Acuna, I think it's worthwhile doing that because he's just brilliant everywhere. And if you can, maneuver your team around and get him into midfield, he always gets a special card every year that eventually you're able to move into midfield and becomes one of the best midfielders in the game. And so, yeah, I think those 4 players from La Liga will definitely be ones I'll be keeping an eye on. If I pack them, I'll be very, very happy.
And I noticed you mentioned 2 Sevilla players. I am, of course, contractually obliged to mention 𝘃𝗲𝗍 Corona, who is at Sevilla.
Kept his 5'5".
And kept his 5'5", yeah. I think he went down to medium, which is a bit annoying in terms of work rate. I think he had high attacking, medium defensive before, but still has the really solid defensive stats, still has that little bit of aggression, but good passing, just incredible dribbling, obviously, and he is small, and he has technical play style as well as trickster too, not the plus, but the regular one, which is nice. Only thing to say is, don't take shots with him because he is still extremely bad at shooting. But yeah, in a 3-man midfield, he's always been fantastic. And I think we can wrap up there the players that we think might be worth using and just move on to this pitch note. What would you say is the key takeaway here in terms of team of the week? Because that is something that it has always felt like it's way behind, and they have improved a little bit each year, but this feels, Josh, like a more substantial step forward.
Yeah, it's something that's definitely been changing as the years have gone on. And I think in their talk about removing red picks from champs and rivals, they did acknowledge that team of the week has fallen behind. And so much of the game is based off of team of the week that it did need a change. So I think the biggest change we've seen this year is that the minimum upgrade that a player will get to, the minimum rating a card will be, is 80 rated. And so there'll be no longer those 75, 76, 77 rated team of the weeks that are a little bit useless. If it's fair to say that. But it seems interesting to me how much of these pitch notes was dedicated to what they're calling authentic content. And the biggest upgrade they gave us last year was the featured team of the weeks that involved a skill move upgrade or a weak foot upgrade. I think the best example of that was someone like Douglas Luiz, who's first inform with that featured upgrade, when we got that boosted upgrade path as well, was amazing. But what happened was his following informs didn't have the same skill moves and weak foot. I think he was like 4-star, 3-star, or 3-star, 4-star on that first inform that he got. And then the ones after it were 3-star, 2-star. And it was like, I'd sooner use that first one. But that's something they have fixed for EAFC, is that now those weak foot and skill moves will carry into new team of the week should they get them, which I think is a really, really good change. I do hope that the upgrade path is either tweaked throughout the year more than once, or it's just improved from the very beginning, because I don't want to lose team of the week. It's definitely been something that, like, they were the OG special cards, and I just think they need to have a little bit more flavor to them, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair assessment of it. I don't know if Hugh, you've really got any thoughts other than we have to, I guess, see quite how it pans out in the game, because they say they're going to improve it, but then of course everything else improves, so it's always a little bit behind, right?
Yeah, I'm also curious because I know they mentioned that they're kind of changing the thing with red picks as well. So, we're getting a boosted team of the week, but really kind of the place we often saw that being reflected in terms of like where you're getting these players, what's from the red picks, other than maybe like some fodder from different packs. But, especially, we have so few packs, it feels like nowadays, that are tradable, that in terms of getting these players in your club, it'll be curious, to see if they're changing anything with the drop rate or ways that you can earn them through specific things, or, what they're doing around that.
It does feel like, with the fact that they're saying that the featured team of the week items upgrades will carry through to the next inform, is good, because often, especially at the start, those players were low rated but had some extra skill moves, things like that. But the idea that their next inform could actually put them up the rankings in terms of their quality is quite nice, and I think will generate a bit more hype around the second informs of a player, which actually in the past, to be fair, often weren't that exciting just because it was a tiny upgrade on the previous one. So I think that'll be good. And we should then just move swiftly on to heroes, which is the other content related thing they've mentioned. I'm not sure whether there's anything to say here, Josh, that we don't know already, but basically just watch out for actual heroes dropping. We've seen the UCL ones, but actual heroes will come at the start of the game. And then in November the 27th, people will get their hero pack, and I guess they'll also be in packs at that point. Have I got that right?
Yeah, but there's a few things in that hero section that I don't think we knew for sure, which is that your pre-order pack, that where you get your Champions League hero card, is only going to contain one of the 19 cards that they've released that are new heroes to the game or changed icons. I'm not sure we absolutely knew that for sure before. So, everyone get ready for your Carnu and Beasley, or I think Alex Scott's actually going to be quite good. But, whoever, Litmanen, I think probably is going to be the worst one. But yeah, that's something that was different. The other thing that's different is that they've said we'll receive the UEFA Hero Pack, so one of those 19, on the 27th November. It says a full 2 weeks before they'll be available in the pack player pool. So not only will we be able to play them outside of it, we now know a date for when we're going to get a UCL promo, which is like 10th of December, like the end of the Champions League group stage. So I wonder if there's going to be a little bit more. Obviously, the FIFA license just broke, but there's still quite a big license with UEFA that EA have, and I wonder if we'll get a lot more of that coming. They also announced somewhere else in the pitch notes that we're going to have the Mad Ready promo for the from the 22nd to the 29th, so the pre-order period. But from the 29th, it's going to be UEFA Road to the Knockouts. That's going to be our first promo, and they said we're going to get Centurions. So we've got a little drips of information of stuff we know is already coming. So yeah, that I think there was a little bit more information in that page than initially it looked.
Yeah, and then player programs is another section they have. Again, there is a little bit of a sprinkling of information, but maybe nothing major, and we'll find out when it comes. But they've said showdowns will be back, dynamic duos will be back as well, which is nice. And they're saying they're going to combine men's and women's players, which is a nice touch and will help with some chemistry crossover, I guess. But was there anything else particularly noted here? I mean, they have got the card designs that you can take a look at, which means there's going to be player moments, flashbacks, end of an era. And of course, Team of the Week we know about.
I think one of the biggest things in this section, and it was mentioned in the women's football section as well, is we didn't really know how promo squads were going to work with women's players. Was it going to be a totally separate squad? For Team of the Week, were we going to get 2 Team of the Weeks? But the way that they've said it is they're going to release them as if it was like a non-top 5 men's league. So similar to the Portuguese league or Eredivisie, that kind of rate. And so I think, again, the worry about promo, not getting as many men's promo cards as we have done because we're introducing this brand new player pool. Again, that's something else I think that's kind of been put away here as well. And I think it's probably the right way to judge it at the beginning to kind of ease it in, get people used to playing with the women's players. I imagine they'll slowly ramp that up throughout the year and over the games as we move forward. They have also said that in the first season, we're definitely getting Eredivisie, Liga F, NWSL, and MLS squad foundations. So if you're wanting a little early investment thing that you can just store in your club, I imagine Eredivisie manager cards might be something to stock up on.
Because they're non-rare as well, aren't they? So generally. So yeah, that's a good point. Right. I think that wraps us up, actually. We've got through a lot on this episode. And we should say, if you have been watching along on YouTube with all the fancy imagery and stuff, well, a shout out to Josh for putting that together. But also leave a like, subscribe. I think we're really close to 1,000 subscribers. So it would be nice to hit that in the first week or so of this cycle. Thank you very much to our guests here. We've had 𝗍𝘓, thank you very much for coming along. And where can people catch you?
Yeah, thanks for having me. You can find me on X, I guess it is now, H00bear. Also in the Foot Weekly Discord, definitely jump in, especially with the new cycle starting. You can see what people are finding is working well in terms of tactics, players you might get worried about, a player who's really cheap on the market that everyone should look out for, anything like that. It's really good to have that community, and you can just share your squad, share what's working, and get advice from people. It's really good, kind of learn the game together.
Yeah, if you're a gold or above supporter, then you can jump into that Discord, and it'd be great to have you in there. And actually, also, there is that 36,000 FC point giveaway going on, and there's the fact that there's a free trial going on for the first tier of support, which is the one where you get those supporter-exclusive episodes. And that means that if you were to go sign up now, you don't have to pay anything, but you can listen to the EA Sports FC 24 cheat sheet episode, which is going to be very useful indeed. And if you decide to continue supporting after that, continuing to get those extra podcasts, full ones, supporter exclusive every week, then that would be hugely appreciated. Again, just search Support Foot Weekly or follow the link in the description. And then, Josh, thank you very much for coming on, of course. And yeah, looking forward to getting into it.
Yes, roll on the web app. Can't wait.
Yeah, looking forward to everyone getting into it. And if you have any success on the web app, on launch, whenever, or have anything to say about the game, any questions, anything you want discussed, then do send those in all the usual ways. footweekly@mail.com, @footweeklypod on Twitter/X, or in the Pod Priority Questions channel in the supporter Discord. If you are a supporter, then a huge thank you for keeping the podcast going, and a massive thank you too to those icon patrons: Dave B, 𝘬𝘬𝘦, Coach Vass, DJ FIFA Player, Alan G, Alistair, Anthony R, Dominic P, Rob P, Jeff B, Michael K, Stephen F, Tom B, Damon H, David S, Nick Jack M, Eric T, Neil P, Adam G, 𝘬𝘃𝗲𝗏, Dan W, Waterman, N Hagman, Harry A, Jake G, Roger D, Springford, Alec, Bracco, Nishant, Harry P, Alex M, Lee A, Brendan W, Andrew C, Joe W, Timothy J, Dylan, J Kell, Ibis24, Adam R, Sam K, Graham W, Andy, Ads H2K, and Brian V. Plus a special thanks to Luke M, Dave B, 𝘬𝘬𝘦, Tom M, Darren W, and Pato Foot for advice and production assistance. Before I leave you, just one more thing to add, though. FIFA's a bit like life, really. It has its many ups and its many downs. If you're having a few more downs than ups in real life in these more difficult times, then please don't feel that you're alone or need to struggle on without taking action. If you go to thecalmzone.net, there's loads of resources, advice, support, or even just a friendly chat for anyone who needs it. If it sounds like it could help you, then head over to thecalmzone.net. And for now, have a good one, and I'll catch you on the next podcast.